Well, I guess there's no better time than the last minute. Yeah, I know. I've been kind of asleep at the wheel here when it comes to this draft season, very similar to last year. It's unfortunate. My sincerest apologies. It's all my fault. Too caught up into other stuff the past couple of weeks in particular have been absolute hell. But nonetheless, if I could do nothing else, I can present to you this final 2020 NFL mock draft, the half-ass version that it is and everything. Here's what I can say. Is if you see a lot of the so-called national experts do worse on their mock drafts than I have, considering the total lack of complete investment in this year's draft cycle that I've had for the most part, um, shame on them. Like, we should be able to come back after the draft or even after Thursday night and look at my mock and be like, ooh, boy, not one of his better efforts. Not one of his banner performances. He's had some good ones in the past. This is not one of them. And then you never know. This could be the one where I actually do really, really well. But anyways, enough of crap about mock draft. Let's talk about these picks. I only did one round. I just don't have the energy, the effort, the time, or the care to do more than that. I'm sorry, guys. But I want to at least take a stab at it. I don't think anybody's surprised. It's all indications are that Joe Burrow is going to go number one, and it's going to be to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, personally, to me, Burrow is not QB1 in this draft, nor is he QB2 in this draft for me, frankly. That said, the Bengals are in a position where they have to take him. Like, he's the safe choice. He's kind of like the consensus choice. If it doesn't work out down the road, it'll be really, really hard to clown the Bengals for bungling it up because a lot of other teams in that position probably would have made the same call. They need a quarterback. They need somebody. They need life in that organization. And if they feel that he's the guy, they have to take him. I understand you could be getting some last-minute Godfather type of deals from the Miami Dolphins, or maybe somebody else is desperate to get up there. But if they have confidence they think Burrow can be a franchise guy, then they've got to take him. Personally, I have a little worry about his noodle arm, being able to make those level of throws at the NFL like he did in college, especially he might not have the same level of talent in college in the NFL. But Burrow is a guy, number one. Sure sounds like Chase Young's going to be the guy for the Redskins at 2, and it makes a world of sense. You're bringing in defensive-minded head coach Ron Rivera. Chase Young's arguably the best defensive prospect in this year's draft. You know, again, I don't think that would surprise a whole lot of people, even with the talent that the Redskins already have in their front seven. They may be trying to take some type of a San Francisco 49ers type of approach to making a really quick turnaround in 2020. Where it starts to get interesting, I think, and where the draft really feels like it begins at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, is at number 3. Is Detroit going to stay there? If they do they take Okudah? Do they take somebody else? Does somebody come up like the Dolphins or somebody else to get into that spot to take a quarterback or, for God's sakes, even an offensive tackle? I'm having a really hard time reading this draft because I could see a run on quarterbacks, 3 of them in the top 10. I could also see a situation where Tua drops because of the injury concerns that, to me, are legitimate. I could also see a situation where nobody's that blown away by Herbert, where they feel like they have to take him in the top 5 or the top 10, and Burrow is the only quarterback going in the top 10. I could certainly see that happening. I think any number of things is certainly possible here. I really, really do. That said, I'm trying to play this out the best I can. I've got the Dolphins trading up from 5 to 3 and taking Herbert. Let me be clear. If they were to sit there and trade up from 5 to 3 and they ended up drafting an offensive tackle, that is all types of levels of monumentally stupid. Why did you trade Laramie Tunsil just to sit there and a few years after drafting him and then trading him away, trade up to go get an offensive tackle? That's just really, really epically dumb if the Dolphins do that. And I just can't believe they would. Now, maybe they would roll the dice and stay at 5. Maybe they're worried the Jaguars or somebody else are going to try and get up there into that 3 spot to take a quarterback. But at this moment, I've got the Dolphins trading up from 5 to 3 to get Herbert. The Giants take the first of the offensive tackles, which I expect there's going to be a run on offensive tackles between picks 4 and 11. I think a lot of other people are aligned with that. And I've been talking about for a while a little bit of draft coverage that I've given you this year, where there's a lot of talk about the wide receiver class. I've talked a lot about the offensive tackle class and just how good it is, especially at the top. And when you look at this offensive tackle class in general, I've got 4 guys going in the top 11. Thomas at 4, Wills at 6. You've got Wirfs at 9, Becton at 11, and then I've got 3 other offensive tackles going later in round 1. That's 7 offensive tackles. Feels like that's maybe 1 too heavy, but it might not be. Because the offensive tackle class, again, this year is really, really good. Still penciling in the Lions with Okudah at 5. It seems like that's a safe pick for them. Where it might get interesting for some of you is you look at the Chargers at 6, and I've got them taking Wills, the offensive tackle from Alabama, and not a quarterback. I personally feel like they would love Herbert more than they would Tua. That said, in this scenario, Herbert's already gone. I can't imagine, while as much as they might want to have somebody that could potentially be a box office attraction, listen, I could end up on my ass and be totally wrong here. But I just think a lot of teams have taken Tua off their draft board. I believe several teams have legitimate, serious concerns about that hip and its ability to hold up no matter what the MRIs say, no matter what it looks like right now. It's not just about what it looks like right now. It's what it's going to look like down the road and whether or not he can hold up long-term in the NFL. And I look at that for the Chargers, and maybe they feel like they can trade back up into the bottom portion of round 1 to take a quarterback or take a quarterback on day 2, and maybe they really feel confident in Tyrod Taylor starting in 2020. But looking at this, maybe they decide instead they're going to address offensive tackle first because they feel that's where the better talent is, and maybe their preferred quarterback in Herbert is already off the board. One big move up the board, I've got the Falcons. I think it sounds like it's been a really poorly kept secret that the Falcons really want one of the top 2 corners in this draft, and they seem to really love C.J. Henderson. So I've facilitated that here. They trade up to where Arizona was at 16, and they get C.J. Henderson. I've got the Cardinals bumping all the way back to 16 and ended up with Kinlaw, the defensive tackle from South Carolina. Where it gets interesting in terms of another position is wide receiver, as I referenced earlier. And you look at this, there's going to be a run. And it feels like it's broken out into 2 categories. Somewhere between picks 10 to 14, you're going to see that first wave of 3 wide receivers go, potentially. Could be surprise. Who knows? Then it feels like there's going to be another range somewhere between picks 18 to 24, 25, where 3 or 4 other wide receivers go, which is pretty much what I've got happening here. I've got the Broncos trading up to 10, where the Browns are to get Jeudy. If you're a Raiders fan, I think you would be really pleased and excited with it being CeeDee Lamb, although maybe some of you want to fill the old Al Davis mindset of going with Henry Ruggs in his 4.27 speed or 4.29 speed, whatever the hell. There's still a part of me with the 49ers I just want to call out. And while I ended up having them taking Henry Ruggs the third here at 13, it was weird to me. You trade away a Pro Bowl level, damn near all-pro level defensive lineman like DeForest Buckner to get up to 13, a guy a few years ago that you took in the top 10 in order to get a wide receiver, which is a position that a lot of times you won't get big-time contributions out of first-round picks as a rookie. I always wondered if this was a position that the 49ers were putting themselves in a spot where maybe they wanted to get into the quarterback market because they saw what they saw out of Jimmy G in the playoffs and especially in the Super Bowl, and they know likey. It doesn't seem like the tea leaves are blowing that way, but to me, it's just always been funny that they traded up into that spot, got the Colts first-round pick at 13. Just felt kind of odd. Now, if they come out of this with Ruggs or Lamb or Jeudy, it's going to be really, on the one hand, hard to argue with that, but on the other hand, like, you took away from a strength and traded away either your best or second-best defensive lineman, depending on how you want to look at it, to get a wide receiver. When the strength of the team last year that helped get you to the Super Bowl was that pass rush, was that front four, was that defensive line. Seems kind of weird to me. So what are some other surprise picks here? Maybe Cesar Ruiz, the center from Michigan, going 17. This is maybe me more so projecting that the Cowboys would really want to take him, especially with Travis Frederick's retirement. Maybe this is that they really like the player, but maybe they wouldn't pick him at 17. Maybe they would trade back a little bit, but who knows? Maybe they would feel that he is worth it. And you know what? It could potentially be hard to argue with that. If they feel like Ruiz is going to be a Pro Bowl level player at his position for the next 8 to 10 years, then the hell with it. Take him at 17 and don't look back and don't regret it. What I want to see, though, is what happens with Jerry Jones. Because if he's making the calls and reportedly he's locked away in his own house and he's told people not to bother him, God only knows what's going to happen with that 17th pick. Almost makes me wonder if he's going to try and mortgage the future or mortgage a lot of this draft to move up into the top 10 and make a big-ass, splashy type of deal. And there's a part of me secretly, deep, deep down, that is rooting for that to happen. In case you're wondering where I've got Tua going, I've ultimately got him going 20th to the Jaguars. Look, if I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong on this, but I still wonder if Jordan Love might not go ahead of Tua when all is said and done. If Tua doesn't end up being the fourth quarterback taken, I won't be so ballsy as to think that he's going to drop out of the first round entirely. And like I said, there's still a chance that he goes in the top 5. Like, the market is that big. It is all up to interpretations. And I feel like the rumor mill hasn't been as hot with this draft as they've been in the past couple of years. So it's a little bit harder to get the feel for it. But I'm trying to hedge my bets here. And I just feel like he will drop. And we'll see just how far he might. But with that said, I've got Jordan Love going 24. Maybe the Saints like him. Maybe they value somebody like a linebacker like Patrick Queen instead. Or maybe a team like the Chargers maybe would want to trade up to 24 back from round 2, get back into round 1 to take him. So I've still got the 4 quarterbacks going. It just feels weird. Like, again, in general, I just haven't been in tuned to this draft season as a whole. And looking at this final mock draft, like, this feels like it's either going to be one of these things where I really, really do well with this, or I look like a complete and total jackass. And not just the complete and total jackass that I usually look like anyways, but because of this specifically. You can feel free to comment on my mock draft. Let me know how much it sucks, and I guess we'll find out after Thursday night just how bad it really is.